It is important, Falcons fans, that we do not neglect the on-the-field aspect of the 2026 Atlanta Falcons because we can get caught up in all of the big names in the GM search and the head coaching search with Harbaugh and Kubiak and everybody involved in this process. But the game is still played on the field. So on today's episode, I'm going to give you some very early Atlanta Falcons free agency targets. Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. And like I said, it's important to give updates to the players as well as what talking about the head coaching and the GM candidates for Atlanta. Because at the end of the day, the coach has to coach the players, and the GM is responsible for drafting the players. So we got to talk about the players. So let's get this question out of the way. I don't want to wait till the very end to get this, question answered by y'all straight out of the gate. Name a free agent you want the Falcons to sign, and it is a big free agency class. Some positions this year are massive, like wide receiver. Some not as much, like quarterback. So I'm going to give you 4 different players today that I think the Atlanta Falcons can at least do their homework on and maybe potentially sign to make their team that much better. Either way, let me know in the comment section down below. Quick little disclaimer, by the way, everything is based off of the head coach. I do know that. So based on who you get as head coach, their priorities will line in their side of the ball most likely. So if you hire a head coach that is offensive minded, they'll probably be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball. Does that make sense? With that being said, though, the Atlanta Falcons have some priority needs: high priority, medium priority, and lower priority. And I've kind of broken those positions down based off of those needs. And in my opinion, your 2 high priority needs are nose tackle and defensive tackles and wide receiver. Those are my 2 high priority needs. My middle priority, I would say cornerback and quarterback. We'll talk about that here a little bit later on in the episode. I know what you're probably thinking, whoa, Michael Penix Jr., but trust me, we're going to get to that point. I guarantee it. And then lower priority, offensive line. I know the Falcons' offensive line kind of regressed as the season went along, but I do believe that getting Caleb McGarry back and having Storm Norton back as kind of like a swing offensive lineman will make this unit that much better going forward. I think it's a lower priority to get offensive line depth. So I decided that I'm going to give you the top 4 here: nose tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, and quarterback. All some targets that we could potentially sign to make this team that much better. Let's start with the offensive side of the football. We'll go with our first free agent target, Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5'8" slot wide receiver out of the New York Football Giants, who notably just passed 1,000 yards and 90 receptions, averaging 11 yards per catch in 2025. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whoa, Moose, 5'8". That is really tiny. That is like running back small. Yeah, it is. But you know who he kind of reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of like Wes Welker. The guy just lives in the slot. And this was by far, with Malik Neighbors being out for basically the entirety of the year for the New York Football Giants, this was his real opportunity to come out and show, hey, I can be a part of a growing offense. Will he ever be a true number 1? Probably not. Will he ever be a dominant number 2? No, probably not. Can he be one of the best 3s in the league? Undoubtedly. And I do believe that Darnell Mooney, facing all of the injuries that he did this year, does not necessarily have a spot guaranteed on this football team, regardless of who the coach is. So at 5'8", Robinson takes over that Ray McCloud spot as a pure slot wide receiver. And he's 25 years old. He's in his prime, just coming off one of his best seasons, actually his best season of his NFL career. I think Wan'Dale Robinson will make an excellent addition to whatever team he decides to go to. And I don't think he wants to re-sign with the Giants. By the way, the Falcons have been missing that traditional slot since Ray got released, especially this year. So, look, you could say what you want about Ray and this whole coaching regime. Obviously, those two were divided after Ike Hilliard got fired. So I look at this as the Falcons need a true slot wide receiver. Are they going to get a true slot wide receiver? Well, remember, we could always draft somebody in 2026 to play wide receiver. But I also believe that you would want to go out and do that as a second-round pick and get somebody on the outside that can combo with Drake London. This is an easy signing because the truth is that he's going to want somewhere near $15 million a year. He's probably not going to get that. He'll probably settle for somewhere between, I'd say, 11 and 14. Let's call it right in the middle, $12.5 million. If you signed Wan'Dale Robinson to a 2-year, $12.5 million per year with the opportunity to pick up a third-year option, you absolutely could, and I would in a heartbeat. I think the guy's got excellent hands and excellent speed and quickness for a guy that his size kind of demands. So I would sign Wan'Dale Robinson if it were me, but only at the right price. Let's move on to our first defensive player of this episode. DJ Reader, nose tackle from the Detroit Lions. Now, kind of opposite here of Wan'Dale Robinson. This is a player that I would not sign for more than 1 year. I think this would be kind of like a 1-year prove-it kind of deal, specifically because he's a 10-year veteran out of Clemson, but just take a look at the size of this guy. 6'3", 330 pounds. And he did start all 17 games with the Lions this last season, so he is obviously all reliable on the defensive side of the football and can kind of be viewed as that anchor position on the defensive line. Well, what's something that we've been clamoring for the Falcons since basically the beginning of the year? We know that the Falcons' run game or run defense was absolutely abysmal at times this football season. It actually got a little bit better as the season went on, but this year specifically, they had such a tough time stopping the run. Well, DJ Reader is what I like to call the DJ Space Reader, or Space Eater, if you will. No pun intended, and kind of cornball of me to say, but DJ Reader is the definition of a space eater on defense. He just takes up space. I mean, at 6'3", 330 pounds, that is a wide human being, someone that you could plug right up the middle and just force them to just kind of anchor that nose tackle, take on that center, and close up that A-gap, no matter what the cost. Now, I will kind of remind you that his better days of being a great pressure player are kind of behind him, right? He's getting older. He didn't have any tackles for loss this year, but take a look at his pass rush grade and his run stuff grade. 71.8 in the pass rush and 61.7 in the run stuffing. He can still create pressure. That's a very, very good sign. And one of the things that Jeff Ulbrich, if he remains as the defensive coordinator, has shown a propensity for is he wants players, especially on that interior next to Brandon Dorlus, that can generate pressure. And if you just actually tell him to take a step back, because the Lions pass rush was good, not as great as the Falcons was this year. If you just let DJ Reader sit back a little bit and say, hey, we kind of want to shift your game. Let's just focus on stopping the run. I think that's a whole lot easier than trying to generate pressure on opposing quarterbacks, specifically going into your 11th season now in the NFL. When it comes to his cost, again, probably somewhere right around $10 million per year. I think he's making $11 million in base right now with the Lions. I don't think he'll get that much, considering he had a little bit of a down area and down year in statistical production. So maybe this is between 8 and 10, $9.5 million, and then maybe a couple more with incentives. But base salary, you shouldn't have to pay too much money in this area, specifically given his age and his statistical output. Now, coming up, we've got some other free agent targets that I kind of want to explore. One of which is on the offensive side of the ball, and the other one is on the defensive side of the ball. Now, before we do that, I got to tell you about my friends over at Prize Picks. 2026 means new decisions for you and for me, but Prize Picks, it never, ever gets old to stop being right. And whether you're trying a new routine or making player picks for the very first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it is always good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every single weekend and elite hoops action almost every single night, the action never stops, and on Prize Picks, it lets you take control. They got a brand new feature alert. Prize Picks now has early payouts, meaning if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Speaking of which, it's super easy to play. It takes 30 seconds to make a lineup. You pick the player, the more or the less on their stat projection, and then you watch your money multiply. It's so easy. So just download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. There's flex play, there's power play. Any type of way you play, do it with Prize Picks. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Oh, interesting. Moose. What do we have here? A quarterback. Malik Willis. Yeah, you guys know how high I am on Malik Willis. And before you come after me and come after my jugular in the comment section, just hear me out with Malik Willis. I think this is a foolproof, safe plan to have somebody like him join the Atlanta Falcons next year, and it cannot possibly go wrong. It can't. And I'll tell you why. But first, let me break down a little bit about Malik Willis, the player. Because coming out of Liberty, I didn't necessarily know how much I loved him. And then when he got drafted by the Titans, it was like, okay, this guy's going to end up just falling into NFL oblivion. And then he goes to the Packers. And all of a sudden, the resurgence starts to come along. He's played 11 total games with the Packers. He started 6 of them. He has 972 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, no picks. But I do believe that there is so much untapped talent from Malik Willis. He just needed someone to smooth out the edges of his game. Speaking of his game, what are those features? What are those pros? He's a dual threat quarterback that not only has a rocket cannon for an arm, but he also has that mobility to get outside of the pocket, something that Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. don't have. Now, he does need to be complemented by a great running game, which, newsflash, I don't know if you checked the last time, we have Bijan Robinson. And then, of course, a large group of Packers fans, this is probably the most notable thing, want him to start over Jordan Love. I would say at least 20% believe that Malik Willis has the ability to be the franchise quarterback at a much cheaper price than Jordan Love. I think they're insane because I do believe Jordan Love is a good, very talented quarterback that will be in Green Bay for a long time. But that's not to take anything away from what Malik Willis is, which I believe is probably the best backup in the league right now, or at least the most talented backup in the league. And here's where Penix comes into all of this. This is why I believe this is a foolproof plan. Penix is out until August at the earliest, my friends. Atlanta will most likely have to make a decision on a backup plan for Penix earlier rather than later, whether that be the draft or in free agency. Time is ticking. And if Penix isn't even ready until earliest August, the other option you've got right now, because we all believe that Kirk is out the building, is Easton Stick. So let me ask you a question. Would you rather have Malik Willis or Easton Stick as the backup plan? And here's the great news. If you signed Malik Willis to a lower-end deal, like a 2-year, $40 million deal, kind of like the Justin Fields deal, you could start Malik Willis if Penix isn't ready to go. Or if Penix is ready to go, the leash is already shorter on Michael Penix Jr. And then you have Malik Willis waiting in the wings to come in and give what he's got. Because here's the good news. You were already paying a quarterback all that money to sit the bench. Now you're paying a little bit less, but you've got someone younger, and you've got a much shorter leash on Michael Penix Jr. It's foolproof. I think it works every sort of way. So I will ask you this question, not about Malik Willis, because that's a Moose preference, but would you add a quarterback in the offseason? If you would, type your Y for yes or type your N for no in the comment section down below, but at least defend your answer as to why you would or you would not. Our last early free agent target on this list is somebody that all Georgia fans should know very well, Eric Stokes, cornerback for the Las Vegas Raiders, formerly with the Green Bay Packers, believe it or not. Now, one thing that I will note about Eric Stokes is that he played for the worst organization in football this year, so it is hard, unless your name is Geno Smith or Pete Carroll, to get your name in the news, or Max Crosby for that matter, if you're a Las Vegas Raider, because they suck. Period. They're not a good football team, and it's going to be a while before it's going to be a while before they are a good football team again. But for all of you who are familiar with Stokes' game, he's a super physical outside corner, something that the Atlanta Falcons could absolutely use. I'll touch on Kobe Bryant here in just a little bit. He has had injuries throughout his NFL career so far, but he's been healthier as of late, and he's a former first-round draft pick from Georgia by the Green Bay Packers. Where does all of this come into play as to why I believe he would like to come back to Atlanta, or why he would make a lot of sense in Atlanta? Well, first things first. Kobe Bryant, the guy that we currently have on the outside, I think Mike Hughes is gone. Don't even get it twisted. I think Kobe Bryant needs a little bit more time to develop. I think there's a lot there that I absolutely love. I think he could absolutely develop into a great player. I just don't think he's quite there yet. But one thing that I've noted about Eric Stokes is that he had probably one of the most underrated seasons of any NFL corner in the game. He didn't have a pick, but he did have 5 pass breakups, and check out his coverage grade, 74.4. That is elite when it comes to PFF grades. So I went and did a little bit more homework. I went to our Raiders report host, Mitchell Renz, and I said, talk to me a little bit about Eric Stokes. And without giving me the full bio of physical corner, this, that, and the other, Mitchell Renz said this quote, and I make sure to put it in here with the quotation marks so I'm not misquoting him. Stokes had the most quiet good year of any NFL corner out there. That's good stuff. Now remember, he covers the Raiders every day. This is his job. Just like it's my job to cover the Falcons, just like it's anybody's job, it's Searle's job to push the buttons. He covers the Raiders. So if he's saying that Stokes had the most quiet good year of any NFL corner, I'm inclined to believe that there's some value there that the Falcons could at least explore. Again, cost, what would it be? Near $10 to $12 million. I do know that for corners, the price tags have gone way up, considering what Sauce Gardner makes, considering what guys like Pat Surtain makes and Derek Stingley makes. But I also believe that this is probably somewhere in the realm of $10 to $12 million. If he wanted 15, I'd be inclined to give him that, but I don't think I'd go much higher than $15 million. Either way, I think Eric Stokes would make an excellent addition and bring him home. He's got familiarity in the state of Georgia. Let's just bring him home. Get him on the outside, other side of A.J. Terrell, and let's get back into business and final out those smoother edges of the Atlanta Falcons defense. By the way, Falcons fans, I greatly appreciate it. You helped us get to 49,000 subs today, which is excellent, which means we only need 982 for our first major milestone here on the channel. Shout out Matthew Peterson for getting us majority of the way there. That's all I got for you on this longer episode of Falcons Today. I apologize, but sometimes you got to get those longer episodes out there, which means you get more Moose, you get more Falcons content either way. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, rise up, and be cool.